I'm a writer. I know dialogue.
That's a fountain of conversation, man. That's a geyser.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yes, provocative.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock, the podcast for those about to read and rock. Subscribe and give the podcast a 5-star review wherever you listen. The website is bookedonrock.com. It's another edition of The Dialogue, a chill and chat with authors, fellow podcasters, listeners, and more. This time, we have Rich Redmond. Rich is a man of many talents. He's been Jason Aldean's drummer since 1999. He's also worked with a long list of legendary artists, including Garth Brooks, Bryan Adams, Bob Seger, Chris Cornell, Joe Perry, Derek Trucks, and Kid Rock. He's heard on close to 30 number one singles. He's also produced 3 number one hits for the groups Thompson Square and Parmalee. As a songwriter, he celebrated 3 number one songs with Australia's The Wolfe Brothers. Rich is also an actor, a podcaster, a columnist, and an author of 3 books. One about to be released in May, which we'll get to. But his true passion is as a public speaker. Rich appears on stages around the world, sharing his strategic business chops, love for people, and distinctive crash philosophy for success. He's here to talk about all of that, plus some of his favorite classic rock drummers, including Stuart Copeland of The Police and Alex Van Halen. To hear a playlist of Jason Aldean songs featuring Rich Redmond on drums, head over to the show notes page. But first, here is Rich Redmond. Hi, Rich. Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, brother? How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
In the introduction, I mentioned all the things that you do. You're a drummer, you're a record producer, you're an author, a columnist, a podcaster, a public speaker. I don't think I left any out, did I?
Did a little acting, but a little teaching.
Oh, that's right. You do acting. That's right. We got to get to that, too. I got to ask you.
All right, man.
So you do so many things, and this, I assume, all a benefit of your philosophy of say yes until you have the luxury to say no. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, everything in life that we want to accomplish, is usually comes at if it's a major thing, a great thing. So you're an author, a dancer, a screenwriter, a poet, a musician, a thespian, it's going to come at great expense. It's going to come at the sweat of our brow. And usually to get from point A to point B in life, you got to roll up your sleeves. And, usually that means saying yes. And before you even hear what the job is, you just say yes, you commit to it. You put that experience in the bank and you just keep moving forward, shaking hands, crashing parties, doing your thing. People start to talk, and it's just, you put each day together to have one heck of a life.
I want to get to more of your motivational speaking and your other projects, but as a huge fan of drummers, I want to start there. You've played with so many artists who I mentioned in the introduction. According to an article from Drummer World's website, you started playing drums at 8. And reading your book, I see that you're a fellow Connecticut native. I'm born and raised in Connecticut, live in Southington, Connecticut, and you were born not far from me in Norwich. And you write that you're the black sheep of the family, the only one to become a professional musician. What was life like for you as a kid growing up, and how did you get turned on to drumming?
Yeah, man. Well, Connecticut is great. We got mutual friends from Connecticut too. Small world.
Yes.
God, New England is great, man. I miss the Carvel and the Entenmann's and all that.
Yeah.
I was born in Norwich, but then I was raised in Milford, and I spent the first 11 years of my life there. So, before I could drive and that business, we ended up moving to El Paso, Texas, because my dad was an accountant and got a job going over into Juarez, Mexico every day and running the factories that made, Victoria's Secret's underwear. So, yay, I know the secret. Connecticut was great because I just was very restless, and my dad, I think, secretly wanted to play the drums. And so he asked me, hey, kid, you want to get some drum lessons? And so, of course, I said yes. I think I was 6 or 7 years old. And my first teacher, Jack Berge, at the Milford Percussion Guitar Workshop, got the sticks in my hands and taught me to read music. And before long, I was playing along with records. And it was just a fun thing. And in all actuality, I was probably a little young at that point. And so I was marinating, I was exposed to it. And then when I moved to El Paso, Texas has such a rich music education culture. I ended up being ahead of the pack because I had that initial training. And then, when you get good at something, it gives you even more confidence, to move forward in life and walk tall. And so that was my thing. That was a good thing for me. My gift wasn't in, athletics. It was in music. And so I just kind of doubled down on that.
Speaking of learning drums at a young age, your first published book, 2014's Fundamentals of Drumming for Kids, presented by Modern Drummer. Many programs for teaching music theory to children, but few cater to the focus age group of this book, which is between the ages of 5 to 10. Why is that? And what approach do you take in the book in terms of targeting that specific age group?
Interesting. Yeah, the book is, we're happy, the book was really embraced by the drum education world. And we wrote it specifically in a way that general classroom music educators could use it as well. But I always try to write my books with a co-author, somebody who's got more experience than me in getting a book over the finish line. And my co-author on that one, Michael Albrecht, a drummer, a hobbyist, he wanted to teach his son drums. And he's like, I really don't feel like there's any really good books on the market for that young age category. So we kind of flipped the normal pedagogical approach to teaching the instrument, which is like, here are the sticks, and then you learn the rudiments, and then you have a practice pad, and then you never see a full set of drums until you have your hands fully developed, and it can take years and years. And a lot of times you'll lose kids, because kids they're just so ADHD, everyone is now in this crazy world we're living in. So we just kind of said, well, let's just get them on the drums, playing beats that they heard in their mother's womb, when they're, and if they fall in love with it, they fall in love with the drums, then we can backtrack and teach that normal stuff that most drum educators start with. So we try to get them hooked. But the main selling point of the book is really reading music, and that is a skill and an ability that has helped me so much time and time again in my career, that I think that's such an important skill. We go right after that. You're gonna teach these kids beats they heard in their mama's belly, and we're gonna teach them how to read music at the same time.
You've worked with so many artists, different genres, so I'm assuming that really helps you. And I'd love to hear some stories, maybe a thought or a story that comes to mind on just a handful of these guys. Bryan Adams.
Yeah, well, I'll have to say that most of my successes and in the last 20 years of my life have been a result of being around these birds of a feather, people with similar philosophies and outlooks and aspirations. And that's the guys in my band. And of course, Jason Aldean, we've been playing together, finished each other's senses for about 23 years. And that is just such a rare thing in the music business.
Been that long, 23 years with Jason
Yeah,
Aldean? Wow.
I met a young Jason Aldean in 1999. Between 1999 and 2004, we showcased for every label in town. We recorded. We kind of marinated his sound and his approach, and then he got signed to a record deal in 2004. The first single came out that year, and we hit the road. And, we were doing 200 shows a year, so we have played thousands and thousands of shows together, and a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of diesel fuel. And as a result of that relationship, we do so many TV shows and tours, and sometimes other artists want to perform with us. So I did a television show with Bryan Adams called Crossroads, where Jason sings Bryan Adams music and Bryan Adams sings Jason music, and we were the band that backed up both artists. And just recently, we played a CMT Awards, and Bryan came in again on his private jet, landed, limo to the stage. Hey man, how you been? I haven't seen you in 10 years. High fives. Hugs, boom, live, millions of people. We play a couple of his songs, so most of the situations like that, if I'm playing like with a Bob Seger or a Chris Cornell or a Ludacris, these are like relationships and opportunities that came through, working with Jason Aldean. And a lot of these situations are super high pressure, because a lot of times you're just shaking the person's hand. Maybe you get a rehearsal or a sound check, and then somehow you're performing for millions of people on a television show. And again, the confidence in playing a variety of styles, that training I have from getting my master's degree and, playing big band jazz and 20th century classical music, and then reading the music, of course, where I can hear a song relatively quickly, almost in real time, and create a chart. And then I could use that chart to kind of cheat, and no one really knows that I'm reading the song and playing it down perfectly. So that's a big part of my music education philosophy.
That's fascinating.
I mentor kids, is reading music.
How long before a show, like for example, Bryan Adams, how long before that show do they give you the list of songs?
Oh, yeah, I think a couple of days before, management will send out, hey, we're doing the songs. And I think we even had a rehearsal with that one. We didn't have a rehearsal with him, we ended up having more of a sound check with him, which is like, hey, can you hear yourself? Are we good? Okay, well, we're loading in the audience and we're going live in 58 minutes. That, that kind of a thing. But also, the reading was really good for situations like we always had opening acts. So like Luke Bryan is open for us, and Parmalee and Thomas Rhett and Tyler Farr. And so if you listen to like Luke Bryan, you listen to like country music, these are, people at the top of their game. But in their early stages of their career, they would open for us. And a lot of times the drummer would get sick, break his toe, have to be in a wedding, someone in their family gets sick, they have to leave the tour, and you get a knock on the dressing room door about an hour before the show. Hey, Rich, drummer for Thompson Square, broke his toe. Can you fill in for him tonight? They're going to do 6 songs in an hour. Oh. And so then you have to kind of like, even though I recorded the drums on their record, it was just one day of my life. And then you go in, you execute, and then you forget about it, right? And then they're like, hey, you got to go do this in front of 20,000 people. And so that's where the reading again would be like, all right, let's scribble this out. Let's go out there and be a character actor, play the drummer for Thompson Square. And then no one really knows the difference. And then you have the ability to save the day through a skill set, which is pretty exciting.
Bob Seger, what was that experience like?
Oh,
how
Bob
did that
Seger
all
was
come
another
about?
thing. Yeah, we did another one of those Crossroads television shows where Bob would sing Jason's music and Jason would sing Bob's music. And I got to tell you, most people that are uber successful and they hold that position for multi-decades, well, of course, they're great at what they do and they create a body of work and a legacy. But more often than not, they're just nice people. They're just pleasant people. They're likable. And Bob Seger, has every right to be a total jerk, but he was so nice. He knew all of our names. He knew our crew guys' names. He knew all of our songs. You could just tell he was a fan of our music. He's like, walked in, hey, Rich. All right, Bob Seger knows my name. I haven't even played a note yet. And just super friendly, encouraging as far as rock stars goes. The guy's a billionaire, and he was just the nicest person ever.
What songs did you play with Bob Seger?
Well, it's so funny. I didn't get to play Bob Seger songs. I got to play mostly Jason Aldean songs with Bob singing with Jason, which was fun. But he also had his band. He at the time, Don Brewer was playing drums from Grand Funk Railroad. The drummer from Grand Funk was playing with him. So I got to meet Don Brewer that day. And so it's just a testament to like, if you really focus on something, you have a vision and you follow through and you never stop and you take every day as an opportunity to sharpen your skills and to get better at what you do. These people and places and opportunities and circumstances will cross your path constantly and consistently. And it just makes for one exciting life, It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And the late, great Chris Cornell. What was that experience like?
Again, a television show. I shook his hand. It was like one of these ACM Artist of the Year awards, and it was like a big award show, and I got to back up. Oh, God, I could have been the same show, but I backed up him and Chris Stapleton and Little Big Town and Keith Urban and Aldean, and it was all at the Symphony Center here in Nashville, the Skirminghorn Center, which is really nice. So the acoustics were beautiful. And once again, I love television. I love Hollywood. I love entertainment. I love TV. And, when people are going, and 5 and 4 and ladies and gentlemen, Good Morning America, brought to you by such and such. And then boom, you count it off and just millions of people are watching you over their cereal. It's so fun.
What a rush. Joe Perry, Kid Rock were the other two I wanted to ask about. Joe Perry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man, Joe Perry, another television show. He joined us on a song called Mike on a Party for some big award show. The beautiful thing about award shows in country music is that there's so many. So as musicians, we all get these cute little extra checks every year because we play the CMAs, the ACMs, the ACCs, the CMTs, there's so many 3-letter award shows. And then a lot of times we might do the Grammys or the People's Choice Awards or the American Music Awards. So sometimes there's 6 or 7 additional award shows every year. And then when we get on an album cycle and we put out a new album, we always hit the Todays, the Tonights, the Good Morning Americas, all of the late night shows. We do that New York, LA run, which is always fun. And then let's see, Joe Perry, and then who did you ask
Kid
about?
Rock? Yeah, Kid Rock.
Oh yeah, Kid Rock. We did we did some co-headlining tours together, one of which was 2 nights at Fenway, which was really, really awesome. And then when we're ever in Michigan, we always have Bob. We always have Bob come up and join us for a couple of songs. So I got to back up Kid Rock in his hometown of Detroit. Pretty cool.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Bob Seger, Kid Rock and Bob Seger are buddies now, and they're both from the same area. Seger from Dearborn, Michigan, I believe is where he's from. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. You've been named Country Drummer of the Year in Modern Drummer Magazine, which is the most prestigious drum publication in the world, in 2010, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. Wow. You also played with the prestigious 1 O'Clock Lab Band, the premier performing ensemble of the University of North Texas Jazz Studies program. What are some of the other personal standout moments in your career as a drummer? First concert appearance or a Grammy appearance?
Oh, it's always nice playing the Grammys. We had this crossover hit with Kelly Clarkson. It was a #1 song duet with Jason and Kelly. And of course, once again, the girl can sing anything, but she is the nicest person in the world. And that's why she's a huge brand ambassador and has a huge successful daytime talk show. I mean, she's just that person that can. It's just fun to be around again. So the Grammys are always great. Same thing when you're like, oh my God, millions and millions of people are watching. The first part of this song, I'm playing just a shaker, just this, $50 plastic tube filled with rice or beans or something. And I'm just don't drop this. I was holding on to that thing for like dear life.
You're thinking that, something that could go viral on social media.
Yeah, like the drummer tripping on his way to the drums, or the drummer, drops the shaker.
But it's good to know. So those who are getting into the business of as a musician, you never lose that fear. I guess when that fear goes away is when it's time to quit, right? Because you have to, you care, you still care.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's easier to play for 80,000 people in an NFL stadium than it is for 8 people, because I've done like literally another side part of my career is as a music educator is to do drum clinics, and then literally one time I had 3 people at my drum clinic, and this is the early days, and the owner of the store said, hey, do you want to like reschedule or cancel? And I was like, absolutely not. Those 3 people that are there, we're going to reach them. We're going to give them something. They're going to remember this day. The show must go on.
Yeah, but like you say, the smaller crowd, they're looking right at you, and you can see them. Yeah. Whereas like somebody in the 100th row, jazz, right? Jazz is like right there. Yeah, it's
such an intimate thing. Jazz. Most jazz venues are so ridiculously small, and that's why you always get the 2-drink minimum thing, but the band is 5 feet away, and that's another just an interesting platform.
Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, the making of Hysteria, when Rick Allen was really stressing over the drums and what to play and this, that, and the other with the cymbals, and Joe Elliott said, hey man, we're going to be playing to huge arenas. Just don't worry, space it out. You don't have to get particular with a lot of that stuff. Whereas with jazz, you do.
The way I have survived as a freelancer in this business is realizing that, there's 2 kinds of music, good and bad. And I even like the bad stuff, and even bad music needs a great drummer. So,
yeah,
I love music, all kinds.
How about that? Though, speaking of that, Rick Allen loses an arm. That is one of the most inspirational stories that I can think of in my lifetime as a music fan.
Yeah, and also the real humanity of that story is, of course, this person loves his drumming and his band, his instruments so much, and never wants to stuff. So he has to reinvent himself and figure out how to play using his feet and pedals and incorporating technology. And he does it at the highest, most successful level. I've seen it in person. It's amazing. But, the real testament is the guys in his band who stood by him and said, absolutely, no matter what, you are our drummer.
Never gave it a thought. Never even thought about it. Yeah. You write in your book, Crash Course for Success, 5 Ways to Supercharge Your Personal and Professional Life, about the Police album Synchronicity from 1983 being your gateway to music album. That was your gateway record. The next year was Van Halen's 1984. You became a huge fan of both Stuart Copeland and Alex Van Halen, and pretty much identical to my story. Synchronicity was the first album I bought. Got it at Caldors. Do you remember Caldors?
Oh, heck yeah. I would go in front of Caldors and play the Space Invaders machine.
Yes. Got it with my paper route money. And then Van Halen, that's just the band that was, is, always will be my favorite band. So what stands out to you about both of their styles and drumming, and what makes them so special? We'll start with Stuart Copeland. What an amazing drummer.
This was, like I said, the MTV era. So, the video for Jump was on, twice an hour, 24 hours a day. Same thing with that Synchronicity record, and cute little Martha Quinn would intro. I was like, I want to meet Martha. Anyways, I don't think I was overthinking it at the time. There was just some visceral attraction to that music and the way these guys were performing it, and two very different drummers. Stuart was somewhat formally educated, and he was his dad was an army brat, so they moved around everywhere. So he was soaking up all this different kind of music, like Middle Eastern music and jazz and American stuff and the British invasion stuff. They put it in a blender, and then of course the Police are a mixed bag of rock, punk, and reggae. Caribbean stuff. And so it's just a really cool way for this person to shine in their approach. He tuned the toms way up like a jazz guy. The snare drum had this, really articulate snap. And then he had these cool octobans on the sides and these splash cymbals. It was just very, very unique. He was almost like a vaudevillian percussionist approaching punk, rock, reggae music. And Alex was just a very muscular sound, big drums, big approach, a very signature snare drum sound, a very signature sound the way he recorded his drums. He's playing with his brother. Once again, there's that drummer frontman aesthetic. There's always that kind of push and pull that's either like framed by family or there's some sort of a story, like Billy and Liberty on the drum, Billy Joel, or Elton John and Nigel Olsson. There's always this kind of dynamic between the singer and the drummer that creates this beautiful tension, and that's kind of like where the magic is.
That's what Alex talks about that in recent interviews. He talks about when Ed would go into a solo, he would give him a lot of space. So if you listen to, like, a great example is Jump on Eddie's guitar solo, he's giving it room to breathe. And I always found that fascinating. And I always found that that's the underrated aspect of Alex that a lot of people don't really think about, because Ed is just so damn good that people were first listening to him or watching Dave do his stuff. But Alex, I think, is very underrated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Alex and Michael are back there, doing the heavy lifting and listening and laying down this just beautiful, this bedspread for those guys to just lay in so they can do their thing. But, it's the drums are more than anything are an accompaniment instrument. And so specifically on Jump, I mean, the drum part that Alex composes, because those boys are very musical and have that classical background studying the piano. So he creates this very memorable hooky drum part that if you took the guitar part out, you could almost pretty much tell what that song is going to be from the drum part, which is always, the mark of a really musical musician is if you take out, you could take out the vocals and all the other tracks from a Dave Grohl drum part on that Nirvana record, and what song it is. And that's a big testament to the compositional skills and the musicianship, the musical mind of those drummers.
The little nuances, again, just using Jump as an example, when Dave says might as well jump, and at the end, I think it's more so at the end where Alex just goes and just throwing that little thing in there, it just makes you feel like you're jumping. It's really cool, that kind of stuff. Do you ever think of those things while you're recording a song? Maybe if I just add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, that's going to be cool.
Yeah, you're always looking for that Mona Lisa moment that you can make something special and stand out. And it's been nice. I've been doing, this for decades, and it's always nice when someone's like, hey, I can always tell very quickly when I hear you on the radio, I could just tell it's your drumming. I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing, because a lot of stuff that a session drummer is going to do is it's not necessarily rocket science. It's stuff that we just know is going to make a song come alive, which is more about staying out of the way and then trying to create some little moment, little thing that's memorable about the track. And it could be just one little note, like you said, on the splash cymbal or on the bell of the hi-hat cymbal, or one just slightly oddly placed thing. But yeah, that's the goal of a good session drummer, is to, like, these people are walking around with these ideas sometimes for years at a time, telling stories about heartbreak and loss and love and the journey of life, and it's our job to get in there and to kind of like flesh it out and bring it to life. And it's a big responsibility. I really never take it lightly. When someone says, hey, someone's willing to pay to have my drums and to have me in a recording studio and lock me down for the whole day. I mean, it's a major responsibility, and it's a major pat on the back that someone wants me to do that, to bring those songs to life for them for all time.
What are some of the songs you're most proud of that you've recorded?
Oh, a lot of the Aldean hits are great. It's funny that his first hit would be this. Our buddy Jim McCarthy and I talk about all the time how this song Hicktown starts with my right foot, boom, 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 and it starts the whole song off. And I've heard that song in supermarkets and elevators and getting my oil changed, and it's such a great thing that
what
you
a
go
rush.
in and you do something for like maybe 1 or 2 hours of your life, and it's there. It's a record. It's a recording of a snapshot in time of a experience that people had together. It's that is a really, really cool thing. But yeah, that body of work that I have with Aldean is great, and there's a couple of records for this group called Thompson Square, and then there's a bunch of things that I get hired for that help other people, like up and coming singer songwriters or bands, and I'm happy with my work. It's a great day's work, and we high five and we hug, and I get paid, and I work my craft. But then sometimes you just never hear that. Some of the great stuff that I've played will never ever be heard because the act doesn't make it. They're not able to break through the noise of the modern music industry and create notoriety for themselves. They go back to the struggle.
Yeah, right place, right time. Does that have a lot to do with it? Obviously, hard work, talent, being a good dude, just being, like you say, Bob Seger, I'm sure him being as nice as he is, that helps too.
Absolutely. But yeah, you can do all those things like, have your 10,000 hours together, be over prepared, treat your business like a business, be totally professional, look people in the eye, try to remember names, firm handshake, play to the best of your ability, be the first one there, the last one to leave. All that like business acumen stuff surely is going to help, but it is the Wild West. There is no rhyme or reason to the music business. Is it, what's the model these days? Winning an award show that may kickstart your career, or is it just going and playing the coffee houses and then hiring a band and getting a van and taking the music to the people? Or is it trying to get the likes and views and virality on your TikToks and Instagrams? Or is it all three at the same time? I don't know. There's just no one way to do it.
So many hits Jason Aldean has had. Do you still have to pinch yourself every time you get a hit single? Does it ever? It never gets old.
It never gets old. Yeah, I think I've played on 31 number one hits, and I think about 27 or 28 of them have been number ones with Jason Aldean. And that's not counting his body of work of songs that we put out that maybe went top 10 or top 5 or were number 2 or number 3. Like they almost got there. But yeah, you're just, you're one song away from the end of your career. You're like, God, I hope this works again. I hope this works again. And thank God, there's something special about, Jason's artistry. He chooses wonderful songs to record. He's got a very undeniable voice, very recognizable. And then he has a great live show that he just keeps taking the music to the people, and they keep showing up for it. So we never take that for granted. And we just earn that every night. So yeah, it's definitely rarefied air, and we are definitely humbled by everybody continuing to support, the music, and very grateful, obviously.
I asked you about songs that you recorded that you're most proud of. What about specific songs among the classic rock era? Because this podcast, we do get into the classic rock era a lot. Like the best performances on record. Like you always hear John Bonham, Neil Peart, Ginger Baker, those types of guys. Any songs that stand out to you as like the hardest to play? Or just like you're just blown away? I mean, I know When the Levee Breaks, that's more from a production aspect, just the massive sound of it. But I know Neil Peart has some moments. Ginger Baker, it's very jazz oriented.
Yeah. I mean, I love all those guys. I like all drummers. Like I steal. I mean, they said that good composers borrow, but great composers steal. So like any great rock drummer in the 60s, 70s, and 80s was, stealing from R&B, Motown, and then before that they were getting their stuff from the big band drummers, and before that, I mean, it's coming from Africa. It's like we all just keep borrowing and then putting our unique spin on things, but. I loved Gene Krupa, and then Gene Krupa kind of influenced, your Ringos and
Peter
your
Criss.
Bonhams, and yeah, Peter Criss. Peter Criss was huge for me, obviously. Like, listening to, I had Kiss's Double Platinum, because we were all in the Columbia Tape and Records Club, and be like, a penny buys you 9 records, and it would show up. So incredible. But I mean, if I had to look back at like a favorite period of recorded music, it's definitely, I would say like, 70 to like 84, some of the greatest music ever recorded, because you have the height of the bands, right? So your Led Zeppelins, your Beatles, your Stones and then you have all these one-hit wonder singer-songwriters. If you love Pina Colada, Getting Caught in the Rain, that whole thing. Also what happened during that era was the great Laurel Canyon stuff. So all of your Linda Ronstadt's and James Taylor stuff. So just a great period. And those drummers really got to sign. Another hero of mine was a guy named Carmine Appice.
Oh yes.
Absolutely. So I love Carmine. Yeah, Carmine was great, and he was, there was a great drummer, Dino Danelli, who just passed. God rest his soul. He was with the Rascals, and it's so great. Some of these guys that I watched on MTV, Sandy Gennaro playing with Cyndi Lauper, of like watching these videos. Now these guys are in my phone. I could text them. They're friends. Tina Turner's longtime drummer, Joe Cocker's longtime drummer, Jack Bruno. I used to watch him with his jet black hair and black leather pants, playing with Tina Turner on MTV. And, now we go have martinis together.
What I mean? Cool. Yeah. Sandy Gennaro was on the show. Thanks again to Jim McCarthy. Sandy was, what a nice guy. What a great guy.
He's a hero who's a friend now, which is like, I guess if you stay in the game long enough, your heroes will become your friends.
Yeah. We left out Buddy Rich. Ooh, man.
Fantastic. Yeah, he's like that type of drummer comes along. I mean, it's every 20 or 30 years,
The Booked on Rock podcast will return after this. Rich Redmond, drummer for Jason Aldean, among many other things, is on the podcast. You got a new book due out in May I want to ask you about, called Making It in Country Music, and that will be your third book. We're going to get to that. But I want to get back to that second book that you had, 2019's Crash Course for Success, 5 Ways to Supercharge Your Personal and Professional Life. As much as you love drumming, you say on your website, richredmond.com, that your true passion is rocking the house in a different way, taking the stage to share your strategic business chops, love for people, and distinctive crash philosophy for success with hungry audiences around the world. When and how did you get into motivational speaking?
Yeah. Well, you're a great interviewer, man. You really prep, man. I've like I said, I have a teacher's heart. I ended up getting my master's degree from the University of North Texas, so I really am. I tell everyone I'm an overeducated rock drummer. But I started doing drum clinics like 15, 16 years ago, developing that. And I've always kind of sprinkled in motivational elements to my teaching, because I had great parents. My mom was a nurse and my dad was an accountant, and, they had a very diverse law of attraction, think positively kind of like library. So I was reading a lot of like Napoleon Hill and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins, and they always encouraged me. And I just felt in line with that kind of stuff. It inspired me. It kind of became part of my DNA. And then one day in 2009 or 2010, I was teaching at a music store, a drum clinic, and a gentleman walks in, and he, I could tell he's not a drummer, but he's digging it. He's hanging out, and he's like, "Hey, man, these are some universal concepts that really would resonate with corporate America." And I've been with Cisco for a long time. So this friend of mine, Anthony Grady, opened the door for me, and he got me into like 13 events for Cisco. And, Cisco is a Fortune 500 company. They basically run the internet. They call them the plumbers of the internet. So that kind of like kicked open the door as my first client. And then, people talk and like, hey, I'm with Johnson and Johnson. Hey, I'm with Presidio. Hey, I'm with this bank, and I'm with Big Pharma, or I'm a farmer. And then I just started getting all these different kind of clients and bringing that talk. I call it, it's really like, I'm not your dad's or mom's motivational speaker. It's not death by PowerPoint. Literally, there is no PowerPoint. It's just, I'm kind of like a rant comedian sharing the ideas of commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. And then I mix that in with like crowd interaction, and then a lot of drumming and music and storytelling and humor. And it's just fun, and it's kind of where I'm going for my next 25 years because, there is ageism out there. But I think as a speaker, you can speak till you drop.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun.
You say the crash philosophy can work for anyone from children to adults and will allow you to create success in your personal and professional life. What is the crash philosophy?
So CRASH is an acronym, easy to remember, stands for commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. So, committing to your product, to your team, to yourself, and investing in yourself, starting in the mind, that commitment, taking that first step, and the path will be revealed. Relationships, cultivating sincere, lifelong relationships. I mean, I'm doing business with people, mixing business and pleasure that I've known for 35 years. Attitude, it's the one thing people will always remember about you. And I know for a fact that enthusiasm is contagious. I wield it like a sword. And that is why so many motivational speakers talk about attitude, because it's 99% of life. And then that skill set, having that skill set to identifying those skills that we need to be successful in our chosen field, and then not resting on our laurels, like literally developing other things. And because in today's world, we have to be a jack of all trades, master of all. It's kind of an expectation. And then hunger is that having that fire that burns in your belly and keeping those flames stoked. And then I tell everybody as a final piece that, passion is your engine, and you fuel that engine with hard work. So if you've chosen the correct thing, the correct lane in life, the thing that you're passionate about, it never feels like hard work, which allows you to work harder. And the harder you work, that those more people, places, opportunities, and circumstances for positive change and growth and living the life of your dreams is going to cross your path. So you can use each of these things individually, or you can use them collectively as kind of like a synergistically to, really just create success for yourself.
Yeah, one of the things I find as I get older, and we are, as you say, we're around the same age, and I realize that everybody has a talent. Like everybody has something that we were given, God-given talent.
Sure.
And that's, unfortunately, there are people in this world who just feel like they don't have any worth. They're down and out. Maybe they weren't raised with parents that encourage them. And so what do you say to somebody like that if they come into the room and you're there to try to inspire them, to pull them out of that? Because again, there's something that we all have that can contribute to the world.
Absolutely. That's a big part of life. And I think is one of the big tests in life is finding this thing that is your purpose. And I'm lucky that through committing to the drums, I found my purpose, and I actually wrote down my purpose statement, which is to affect people in a positive way and change lives. So affecting people in a positive way and changing lives. And I can do that through music, and I can do that through education. And I was lucky that I was able to identify it at such a young age. And yet I do find people that are working jobs that make them unhappy, and they just don't have ultimately a purpose. So maybe it's journaling, or maybe it's like getting some feedback from some third parties, because sometimes we can't see this forest right there. It's like right in front of us. And so sometimes other people can say, hey, you're really great at this. Have you ever thought about doing this instead of that? And, sometimes people aren't able to act on their passions because they have other responsibilities, and there's financial demands, and they have to raise children, and there's time, and but yeah, it's I worry sometimes for those people that are just like, I'm in this lane, I'm doing this thing, I'm really more interested in this, but I've got 20 years doing this and it's kind of late. And I always just tell them, like, it's never too late. Do it on the side. You like cooking, or you like hot sauce. How about your hot sauce as your side hustle? You do it on the weekends, and it brings you happiness, and allows you to make a difference. And then you go back to your day job and you're happier because you have this other outlet for yourself. So maybe it's journaling, finding out what are some things that are in lane with your God-given talent. So I just kind of knew that I had a teacher's heart. I had the gift for gab. I loved people. And I was like, oh, how can I turn this into a career? So it's my sincere desire that everybody finds that at some point in their life.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because I'm basically exhibit A, okay, because I have a full-time job now, and I was working full-time radio. And broadcasting and writing are my passion. Those are my two passions. And I decided to go with, let me just get the 9 to 5. And then at one point I gave up on all of this stuff, and I got back into it again. And I can't wait to come home from work to write my next article or work on my next episode or interview tremendously talented people like you and just have a blast doing it. And so you don't have to do it. I always had that mindset, like, it's either I do it full time or not at all. And that's a mistake.
Yeah, well, another thing that's really interesting is that in years past, people would just double down on their corporate position and be like, hey, I'm going to do this for 30 years with this company. I'm going to get a watch. I'm going to have my 401k. I'm going to go out on top, and I'll be all taken care of, and it's just a rare thing now that a company is going to really take care of somebody and keep someone for 30 years. So essentially we are all self-employed. That might be your job at the moment, but it can change at a moment's notice from downsizing and corporate restructuring. So it's always great to keep your fingers on the pulse of that thing that you really love doing and or that side hustle, because at any moment that could be your hustle.
Yeah.
Because we are essentially all self-employed.
Yeah. My nephew is just about to graduate from high school, and he wants to get into sportscasting, and his teachers and his guidance counselors say, you have a skill for this. And he just said to me the other day, I said, look, I'll help you set up, the equipment and do a YouTube channel. And he said, well, yeah, but there's just so many people that do it. I mean, who's going to watch? And I said, that doesn't matter. Just do it. And from there, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, Nike nailed it when they said, just do it. I mean, It's like, just do it. Like, someone is going to get the opportunity. Why not you?
Your mom is such an inspiration. She beat cancer, and a year later, running a marathon. It's amazing. Yeah. She instilled one of the important parts of being successful, which is to have a positive attitude. And you mentioned this. Your dad also served in the U.S. Navy on submarines, later worked at a bakery by day, night school, after work for 6 years to become an accountant. Your dad has a saying, the cream always rises. That's great.
You know what? I didn't know my dad was giving me all these wisdom nuggets. And back in 1997, when I moved to Nashville, and I was literally playing for free and crashing parties and doing all these auditions, and was working day jobs, and I was a substitute teacher, so I'd have to be in front of the classroom at 7 a.m, and I was just playing in the nightclub till 3 a.m. So he's like, man, just keep it up, just keep doing this, keep meeting people, and the cream always rises.
Yeah. What was the story? Journey keyboardist Jonathan Cain, I believe it was Don't Stop Believin', that was something his dad told him. And then he wrote that down on that because he was ready to give up. He said, Dad, this isn't working. I'm done. I'm coming back home. And then he said, Don't Stop Believin'. And then the song becomes a hit. And then he said that after one of the concerts that he went to see Jonathan perform, after the show, he says, I told you, don't stop believing.
Amazing. What an incredible story.
Let's talk about your podcast. Jim McCarthy, we mentioned. Jim set up this interview. He's a fellow drummer, entrepreneur, and voiceover artist, and you thank Jim in the book for his support. He's helped you with your voiceover career, introduced you to Paul Deepan. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Paul Deepan.
Yeah, co-author of the Crash Course for Success book. He produced your promotional videos and your podcast, Pick Rich's Brain. Your current podcast, The Rich Redmond Show. This is a combination of all of your passions and projects?
Yeah, the Rich Redmond show is we love Jim. He's just Jim is the ultimate connector, and I'm a connector, and so we see that in each other. And we're both from Connecticut, and like Jim is still has the drum bug, but he doesn't monetize it. He does plays it for fun, and I'm like, man, that's great. Like sometimes I'm jealous. You're doing this just for fun.
Yeah. He used to play at some of our radio gigs when we'd have get-togethers. He'd get behind the kit. I mean, he can play.
He's a great natural drummer, man.
Yeah.
Just great. But yeah, the show is all about music motivation and success. And so, we have interviewed authors and comedians and actors, but there's just this outpouring of love for the drum interviews, I guess, because a big part of my audience is drummers. Drummers follow me, so they just want to know, even if it's it's never the same interview, but sometimes it is the same one. We're like, well, okay, how'd you get started? We try to avoid the how did you get started, and then what what was the first lesson and all that. Sometimes it's just the idea of the show is just to be like three people that are at a watering hole, and someone puts a recording device down. You forget about it, and then you just have a free flowing conversation. And then along the way, if there's some like nuggets of wisdom that kind of come out from the experience, I think people just enjoy being eavesdroppers. So that's what we try to make it. It's kind of shed the light on all things music, motivation, and success. So we're having a blast with it.
You had Ray Luzier on there, Korn drummer, and he played a long time with David Lee Roth. And I always loved Ray's style. And he did a David Lee impression on your show. That was great.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, Ray can definitely do stand-up. He's got that.
Yes. Yeah. And you've produced and acted in several short films, including The Jam Session, Life in the Suburbs, The Audition, and A Small Big Problem. Your first big break came when you played a cop on Sci-Fi Network's runaway hit Happy, featuring actor Christopher Maloney, who we know from HBO's Oz and Law and Order, SVU. How has that been going since the book came out, and what are your future plans in terms of acting?
I got divorced in 2016. So here I am. I'm like, 46 years old. And I'm like, I love drumming. Of course, that's my thing. But I just, sometimes when you go through these kind of changes or seasons in your life, you just want to peel back the onion and maybe learn a new skill. Like I've always had the interest in the dramatic arts. I always love the idea of the sitcom, the 22 minutes, there's a problem and then there's hilarity ensues and it gets all tied up in a nice, neat bow by the end of that 22nd minute. And I'm like, that's my career fantasy. I'd love to be on a sitcom. So anyways, I do the thing. I'm living in two cities. I'm exploring. I'm taking lessons. I got to get the headshots. I got agents. It was good. So in under 5 years, mostly on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I don't know how I did it, but I was able to get my SAG card. So I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild and I'm in the game and I have representation. But in all honesty, I have not worked since 2019 because that pesky pandemic came in the way. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, we didn't even know if we're going to have toilet paper or if we're going to cannibalize each other or, we didn't really know what was going to happen. And I was like, I don't know. It's just safe, and so I haven't worked since then, but that's pretty typical, I think, of an actor. But in this process, I've learned that's going to be the cherry on my creative pie. So I don't know where it's going, but I know that I'm still very interested in it and I still want to keep exploring it, but I just don't see myself doing 80 auditions a year to get the toothpaste commercial,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you don't have to fall back on it. So that's the beauty of it too. If it comes your way, it does. And that's great. But if not, it's not like you're banking on it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the greatest way to cultivate success is like when these people are not doubling down, they're not putting like a whole lot of importance on it. They're just enjoying it. Sometimes the guys that are in a band and they're just enjoying it. They're not trying to make it. They make it. You know what I mean? Because you're not putting so much pressure on it.
Well, you talk about going through difficult experiences, like you mentioned the divorce, but the experience at the 2017 Las Vegas Music Festival shooting, I mean, man, you were there performing with Jason Aldean when it happened, and I can't imagine what's going through your mind at that moment. But what is so inspiring and should be remembered anytime something tragic like this occurs is what transpired after. A week later, you're on Saturday Night Live performing Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down. Now, I'm assuming that was already planned, the SNL appearance, right? Was that booked? Or was that scheduled during that week?
No, it was scheduled after the event. Lauren
Wow.
Michaels
Okay.
calls and says, "Will you come do this?" Because America needed some healing, and we, we rose to the challenge. And yeah, it was a very, very life-altering experience. But you're right; it's really, I mean, it's one of the worst days in recent human history, and it was kind of our job to come out with the gratitude and to go and to try to do other great things in life. That's my responsibility, because I was saved. We were all okay, so we have to go, and we have to go change lives, keep changing lives, keep changing the world.
That's amazing. Let's finish with your upcoming project, the brand new book due on May 15, Making It in Country Music, an insider's look at the industry. What can we look forward to in this book?
Well, yeah, thank you. It's so funny. I think we're number one in country books on Amazon right now, just from the outpouring of pre-orders, which is really, really nice. But
Wow.
the book, again, a co-author. My co-author is Jennifer Delazana, great writer. She had the 50,000-foot view. She could talk me off of a ledge. She could see things that I couldn't see. That's why I love co-writers. And we just said, like, let's have this be kind of like like a visitor's guide to Nashville and country music through my eyes. And if I could share some nuggets of wisdom that could save people 5 years on their journey, and it's also like a career guide. Like, hey, I know there's a person up there singing a song, but there's so many other things. If you're interested in the music business, that you could potentially do. You could stage manage and drive buses and drive the trucks, and you could be a rigger or a carpenter or a tour chef or a social media specialist or a photographer, or somebody that sets up and tears down the drums or the guitars, or you could be a video guy, you could run sound. So all the different types of jobs and what they entail in the music business. And so there's some funny stuff in there, and like, where do you go to meet people, and how do you approach this as a business? And so I'm excited about it. Yeah, May 15th is coming out in a hardcover with Roman and Littlefield. It's a nice publisher. They're in, I believe, New York and London, and so it's nice to have them, and to have them say, yeah, we're going to put this out in a hardback. And then eventually, I'm already getting the requests for me to record the Audible version, which I certainly will, I'm sure.
Daunting task. That can be tough. Reading that book, you get the vocal fry after a little while.
Yeah, you have to make sure you're the right distance from the microphone, and you have the same kind of tone, and it is a job. And again, having somebody that's producing your read or your vocal,
yeah,
very important.
Well, will Jim be helping you with that?
I think this time I'm going to hire Jim to do that. Yeah, last time I had a friend, Eric Stewart, who produced me, and Eric is a professional voiceover artist that does a lot of, like, Tonight on How I Met Your Mother. He does a lot of that kind of stuff, and he does Japanese anime voices. But this next one, like, I'm going to get Jim to do it. Well, great time.
Yeah, there you go. Making It in Country Music, an insider's look at the industry. So that's out May 15. People can find you online and through social media. Where, Rich?
I'm just richredmond.com. It's REDMOND, richredmond.com, for if you want to learn about my teaching, my drumming, my speaking. You want me to do some hosting, some VO, it's all there. And then on the socials, it's just my name on all platforms. Of course, I think people my age are putting most of their efforts into the Gram and the Facebook. So you'll find me on those places.
Awesome. Rich Redmond, thanks, man. This was a blast.
Oh, you're a great interviewer, man. Great show. Doing a great thing. I appreciate you having me.
By the way, can you give a shout out to my niece? I almost forgot. My niece's name is Hannah, and she's a huge Jason Aldean fan.
Hannah, what is up? I hope you're doing great. Thank you so much for listening to our music. We really appreciate it. Have an amazing year.
All our friends are going to be so jealous. I love it. All right, awesome. Rich.
Thanks so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, that was an adventure.
That was quite a show you put on today.
Well, let me just close this conversation by saying you are one unique individual.